Well, they're ready to come back in, but I'm trying to go live, so.
Oh, all right.
Much better. Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
Okay, can you mute everyone then? Are we good?
We're good.
Okay, I apologize. We're having some technical difficulties here. Terry's trying to do the best she can. Under pressure to get things right. Does anybody on Zoom have a question on or comment on Article 4? I think we're done
Oh, I had a,
here. Hang on, I just asked them. I'll come back to you. Does anybody on Zoom have a question or a comment on Article 4? Which is the election, changing the method of election. You need a, you probably should grab a report too, in the box.
yeah,
Oh, you okay, I got it right there. Okay, hearing nobody, Tanya, you had a comment or a question?
just clarification. So if nobody has put in papers and as things go now, and we're at the town meeting and somebody says, oh, I'm willing to run. In effect, they're saying, I'm willing to be writing if all you guys want to write me in, like, that's how it's done, and that's why they don't need any papers.
Right.
That's what's happened in the past.
Right, no, I
That
understand.
can't
That's what
happen
we
in
do
this
now.
new way.
No, I understand.
Right.
So that's
But you won't be able to
now,
do that.
you wouldn't be able to do that.
You can write someone in, but you're not gonna be able to have a group of people kind of organized.
Yeah.
Because the election is going to happen prior to town meeting.
Right.
So if you, could you have another election later if somebody turned up?
I don't know
And-
if you could.
agree
We had
to
no,
it?
no.
I think you can, if you have a vacancy, you can have a special election. If
Right.
someone dies or moves out of town.
Right,
Sure, you
have a
can.
special.
So,
Okay,
yeah, I think you.
that's how, that would be the fallback. If we went to this method.
Right. Okay, we ready to move on to Article 5, I assume?
Yeah, that seemed to be an article we had to elect the school board member.
No, well, there isn't one this year.
Oh.
He was elected for three years last year.
You mean we kept one for a whole year?
Yeah.
Actually, more.
Long year.
Okay. Okay, Article 5. This article is strictly advisory and is not binding on the select board. We just felt it was basically the advisory article last year regarding the matter we just talked about that generated a lot of discussion and good discussion. So we have decided to put another advisory article on to kind of take the temperature of the town. And this article reads to see if the town desires that the select board include an article on the warrant of the 2024 annual town meeting, a year from June. To determine if the town wishes to accept the statutory town manager form of government pursuant to 30 MRSA. Section 261 or sections 261 through 2639 said change to take effect at the 2025 annual town meeting. So a little bit of background, many towns have town managers. They definitely have more authority than the town administrators. In some ways, the town administrators have the worst job in the world because people think they have authority and they don't have authority to do much. The key differences are that employees are hired and fired typically by a town manager. Actually, I should back up. There's two ways to get a town manager. One is to adopt a statutory plan, which this article talks about. And the other way is to create a charter commission, write a charter, have that charter accepted, and that can modify what the town manager does. We're not talking about that here. the town manager would be responsible for hiring and appointing and discipline and firing employees, but not committee and board members. And basically, they would be the executive, he or she would be the executive officer in the sense that the select board would no longer be in the chain of command, if you will. Say the fire chief. The fire chief would report to the town manager, not to the select. And actually, it would be inappropriate for the select board to direct or go around the town manager to supervise or tell the fire chief what to do or what not to do or something like that. No, that's kind of there's a lot of minor changes, but I would say those are the biggest,
That's the biggest.
changes. The reason I think
There's some money responsibilities that shift to the town manager as well.
Yeah. I think the reason we want to take the town's temperature on this is it can get very awkward to have a select board deal with personnel issues. Because you kind of have to do it as a board meeting. You can go into executive session, but only if the person in a disciplinary case, only if the disciplinary person that's being considered for disciplinary action wants it to be an executive session. So it ends up kind of being a bit of a circus. But, so comments?
Yeah, I think as time goes on and town government, town business gets more complicated and more employees are involved, and state and federal HR kinds of rules start to kick in and take over, the ability for a select board to manage a large number of employees gets more and more difficult. And so that's why a lot of the towns, I'd say most of the towns in Maine have moved to to having the town manager as opposed to an administrator. In some ways, it relieves the select board of some responsibilities, but in other ways, it then clarifies the lines of communication for the employees as well as the select board.
Walter has his hand up too.
Hang on, let me see if Sue has anything. Okay. So Walter, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I have two questions. And I apologize. I just thought of this, so I didn't check it out myself. Does the fire department ordinance specify that the fire chief must report to the select board?
I don't know, but if
Okay.
it did, it would be in conflict with state law, and I believe the state law would take precedence.
Okay. So along similar lines, the ordinance does say that the fire chief must be a resident of South Thomaston. And I suggest that be reevaluated over time because it may be that at some day in the far distant future, we might want to go outside the town for the fire chief.
And just to piggyback on your first question, Walter, this will require, and that's why I think doing it as an advisory first, and then putting it on the ballot in 2024 is a good idea, because this is going to take a long time to put this new process in place. You can't just say, okay, now we've got a town manager and it happened. You're going to have to go through every one of your ordinances, every one of your policies, and every one of your SOPs. There's a lot of reporting that goes above the town and lateral to the town and below the town in lines of communication that will have to change and alter. So it is not something that happens overnight. It takes, some towns, it's taken them 2 to 3 years to get it accomplished. So not a quick thing that you can just turn the key and change to this form of government.
Sounds right. Can I go back? I didn't get my hand up in time for the last discussion. Can I go back to that for 1 second?
Can you wait to the end of this and then we'll jump back?
Sure.
Because I just don't want to lose the thread here. Because, I mean, Jeff's point's well taken. I think of the personnel policy, that would have to be completely rewritten. So, Moira,
I think Sally's first.
okay, I didn't see Sally.
I just had a question about back to the relationship between the select board and the town manager. Would that be more or less like a superintendent to a school board?
Yeah, I mean, the only person that under the statutory form, the only person. The only employee that the select board supervises is one town manager.
Like a
So,
school board, so it is
Yeah,
similar.
right. So, Moira,
Question one, if you go with the town manager, that would mean an increase in salary, so that would affect the budget. And do we still have the administrator and the town manager? So it's adding that extra person?
So
That's
that is an extremely good question, and we don't really know the answer. Most towns that have a town manager do not have an administrator. So I would say, yes, it's probably going to impact our bottom line. But I don't think it's gonna actually duplicate the number of employees. I think the number of employees will probably stay static. But you're gonna have to pay the town manager significantly more than what we paid poor Terry here. To do almost the same
although
thing.
having said that, I agree with you. I think it would be very awkward to have a town administrator and a town manager. That just doesn't fit well. But having said that, we have had, and there are many examples around Maine, of town sharing town managers, and we've had a very preliminary discussion, very preliminary discussion. Owl's Head's looking at this right now. They're going about it a different way. We've had a very preliminary discussion with the select board about potentially sharing a town manager, with Owl's Head.
that leads into my second question, which for a town of 1,500 people, how many towns in Maine have a town manager with 1,500?
A lot.
It seems to me that there are towns that are like 2,000 or more that have town managers, but I don't know the answer. Do you folks do?
Yes. Almost all of the towns that have a town manager are our size of town.
Really?
Yes.
I did a search of local and it was about half and half of local towns
Yeah.
that were about the same size as us. I didn't go far and wide, but you can go on. I could not find one spot to find the information, but I just went town by town looking.
Yeah,
We are a pretty small town.
yeah, I think we're on the lower.
We are on the smaller
Yeah.
end, definitely.
Yeah, but certainly, I mean, just locally, St. George does, Thomaston does, I know they're bigger, Union does. Warren does,
But like Hope, Appleton,
Right.
they don't.
they don't.
Owl's Head is
Owl's Head
considering.
doesn't.
Considering it. But again, remember, this is just an advisory article to kind of take the temperature of the town, so. Can I go to Chad, because Chad, you've had your hand up for quite a while.
I didn't mean to have my hand up if I have it up.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for asking though.
Still up.
That's the first.
Very.
Oh, it looks like his hand. Okay, Ray?
It seems to me that, some decision making would go from being a collaborative process to just being made by a single person under this. And I'm wondering what sorts of decisions, if that's correct, and what sorts of decisions would that be the case in?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, how much of the work that you do is taken over by the town manager?
Oh, I think
And,
a lot of it.
yeah,
I mean, the board really sort of is supposed to become, in theory, because nothing ever works perfectly in theory. Basically a policy board,
yeah,
and the management duties are supposed to be completely done by the town manager.
Right.
Which quite frankly is one of the motivations I'd like to have us kick this around, because this is a lot of work.
yeah.
And,
Well, I know you're doing
And-
a lot of work, but you know, the fact that you were able to talk to each other and figure things out together and stuff is great. And to give it to just one person, then you've sort of taken out some of the checks and balances or whatever that you might be
But again, I don't think you take out the policy discussion,
Right, right.
the, what goes on the warrant, the budget, it's still. I mean, the town manager might propose a budget. But in effect, Terry does that now. She talks with the department heads and gathers the data and kind of proposes.
And what about hiring and firing of?
That's all would be a town manager,
So that would be,
not of committees and boards, but of employees.
Could he create positions or she create positions without permission of the townspeople?
I think the town would have to.
Yeah, I think it would have to be, as long as it'd have to be a budget.
Right.
Position, yeah. Yeah, I think that would be driven more by the budget, but.
And the select board.
Oh,
And there's nothing saying that the town manager can't join that collaboration in some things with the select board, can gain that collaboration that you're talking about. But the bottom line is, rather than a 3-person group making a decision on who to hire, who to fire, who to bring in for disciplinary action, it'd be one single person that would be doing that.
I personally would love us to stay the way we are. But I do worry that, as Jeff said, this gets more and more complicated, more and more time consuming, and down the road, are we gonna have people who are willing? I mean, as Jeff indicated, we struggle now sometimes to get candidates, and are we gonna have people that are willing to do that? So, Rhonda?
I just want to say, I think it's a great idea to go in that direction, to have a professional with continuity to manage the town, working with the select board, because right now we have a great team of people who can do all these tasks and work together and do HR kind related things, but we may not always have people of your competence because we are electing you. So if we have a professional who hopefully gives us some longevity and professionalism to handle all of this, that sounds like the way to go in my opinion.
Other, right back here? Oh, Sonia, I'm sorry, I gotta get back to you.
Would town manager have to be from the town?
State law does not require that. And
There are some towns that have required it, but it's not
it
mandated.
limits your pool though.
Definitely.
Because I mean, if you got a great candidate who lives in Isles Head, they're gonna sell their house because. Because they want to work 12 minutes away. So, that actually happened to me in Waldeboro. I mean, when I was hired as town manager there, they required that I be a resident. I said, I'm not selling my house in Spruce Head to be the town manager in Waldeboro for 40 years. So, yeah. But anyways, and they changed their mind and let me be the town manager. Fun.
So, just a few thoughts. The first one is that this is a huge question. And we're not gonna get through it tonight. We're just gonna start touching on what does it mean? We're probably gonna need a series of some kind of educational meetings for us to understand the implications and the alternatives, the options within it. I mean, for one thing, if you're thinking about sharing a town manager, well, he or she cannot live in both places. So of course,
Good point.
we're not likely.
They have to live on the line.
But
That's right.
also, I'm struggling to understand, and I don't hope to wrap my mind around it tonight, budget decisions and who makes them. If the select board is trying to back away from all these day-to-day minutia, well, a lot of day-to-day minutia is in the budget, and I'm trying to figure out how that's gonna work, and I don't need an answer tonight. I'm just saying it's a big question.
Well, again, I would remind you that this is strictly an advisory article, which is just, no, not you, just the audience, I'm sort of wrapping up. We
Yeah.
just want to kind of take the temperature of the town, and get a sense of whether the town wants us to put some time and effort into this, because as Jeff said, it's just bringing it to a vote is gonna require a lot of work, like you were just talking about, and if the town is a resounding no, well, I guess we're not gonna bother to do that. Right here.
What would be the process of hiring a manager?
well, that could. The select board actually would have to vote to hire a manager, but a lot of towns have a
Selection. committee
selection committee or, you know,
Or a nominating committee.
yeah,
sometimes.
that could involve, you know, employees or some department heads or just citizens.
Search committee.
Yeah, a search committee. Although I will admit right now, 15 years ago, if you went to the Maine municipal website, there were lots of town manager jobs. Do I have this backwards? I might have this backwards. There were a lot of more, I think there were a lot more candidates than there were jobs. And now I think it's the other way around. There's a lot more jobs than there are candidates, qualified candidates. And we found that just advertising for a town administrator, I mean,
Yeah.
huh?
Yep.
Or a code officer. I mean, we got the only, quite frankly, in many cases, the only applicants we got were people that weren't even remotely qualified.
What we're talking about. Yeah.
So, anything else on this one?
You mentioned that, would you want the town manager to live in town? The town in Connecticut where I came from has a town manager. The town abutting us has a town manager. Putnam's town manager lives in Killingly. Killingly's town manager lives in Putnam. And the Putnam town manager used to be the town manager for Killingly. I find that there's quite a bit of turnover as far as town managers go, at
Yeah.
least
There is.
what I see.
And just so we don't have any misconceptions. If you take town managers and say, where do I want to be in 5 years? It's not going to be South Thomaston. It's going to be the next bigger one along the line. So we're going to be the entry level. Like you said, we're on the lower numbers, so we'll be the entry level for these. And they're going to be looking for their next bigger town in almost every case.
But sometimes that works out well.
Yes.
You get someone who's aggressive and really wants to, you know,
Make it better.
make a dent and, you know, so. So, yeah, it's a big decision, no question.